Hello and welcome to Rolling with It. I, as ever, am I was going to say a wonderful dungeon master, but I'm not sure I've quite earned that yet. I am. Okay. I exist. I am a person. I am Crazy Ferret. I am dungeon master. This is professional. Brilly, who are you? Go. Yeah. Someone else go.
Hey, I'm Matt. I'm the Brit without the E. Although that doesn't make me special in this chat because no tokens here.
All Brits except for Britty.
Well, don't take away my special thing. What else am I supposed to say for my intro?
Say hi, I exist.
You have two T's. I only get one, so
That's very true.
On the roll 20.
No, Britty gets 2 teeth too.
oh yeah.
Not that the stream can see that.
Yes, I do exist. Potentially.
Yes. Okay.
It's always
Who
an
else
iffy.
Apparently, I do.
Ah,
That's a thing. I'm Riley. Riley Quest. I am a human that is playing D&D. I like to play D&D
at least we
with
think you're a
friends,
human. We haven't verified
including
that
these
yet.
ones. What can't we verify?
That you're necessarily a human. We think you're
Oh,
just
no,
don't know.
I mean, science can't actually define what I am, so...
I
Humans
can.
the closest approximation.
A mess.
Yes.
That is also true.
I mean, I thought we weren't supposed to drop the pretense about all being robots until like the 4th episode. It's all a bit off script.
Turns out we're secretly playing AI Dungeon the whole time.
Don't tell them that's where I get my DMing ideas from.
Britty's the only real one because, as everyone knows, Americans are the only people on Earth.
Of
Yeah.
course. In Australia, it's just a hoax, right?
That's not entirely true. Sometimes British people are allowed to be villains.
Or robots.
We also do have Lumi, who is not currently with us.
Oh, yeah. She is not.
She's not dead.
No,
she might be joining us later.
We didn't sacrifice her in order to get a different group, which is normally how you get a new D&D group, is you sacrifice one of the old members.
That's not to say we didn't sacrifice anyone else on the stream.
No. Well, we're not sacrificing them on stream, but
it will neither be confirmed nor denied.
Yeah, not until we need a ratings boost.
Yeah, we're not Jake Paul 2.0. Anyway,
straight out with that.
Yes, so welcome back. We have a slightly altered cast, and we'll be hopping in with a different campaign that we will introduce to you now. So yeah, thank you all for people who've carried on. Thank you for bearing with us. Hopefully we'll be able to perform up to any expectations you could have. Okay, let me go. So this is not the final map. This is a mock-up that I made because the final map isn't ready yet, just to serve for narrative purpose. Yes, while I explain some stuff. But yeah, hopefully it's clear enough, and rest assured a better map will be coming very soon. Okay, so welcome to Gaecia. I'll start off by reading you the kind of flavor text, which is basically as much as the players know so far. That's all I've really told them. That we learn the most of the rest of it with you, so you can all share in their enjoyment or horror, whatever it turns out to be. Okay, so the mythologies of many worlds tell of a time when the gods walked the earth, before, for varying reasons, they depart. Gaecia is not one of those worlds. They never departed. Coming into being at the beginning of the Second Age, the gods fought in the dark wars against the entities that came before, driving them underground and claiming the surface world for themselves. They created the plants and animals of the world together, but each in isolation made their greatest works, the races of the world, in their own image. The fledgling races looked up to their godly masters and worshipped them all equally, and the gods ruled them together. However, this way of living eventually proved unsustainable. The petty disagreements of the gods manifested in preferential treatment of their own creations, ignoring the ones of those they wished to spite. Centuries of squabbling and bickering eventually boiled over and turned to what is now known as the Titan Wars. The gods fought each other, and the races of the world were dragged into the conflict. Generation upon generation fought one another, bleeding and dying at the behest of their gods, whose anger blinded them to the suffering of their children. It seemed like it would never end. There would be no resolution to their disputes, with each god too proud to ever admit fault. But during the Battle of Scarlet Peak, the unthinkable happened. Ulfgar, god of the dwarves, died. Caught off guard by a surprise shot by an elvish warrior, Ulfgar was dealt a mortal blow by Sailor and goddess of the elves. The result of this duel effectively ended the wars, the hatred of the gods tempered by their grief. They looked at the world around them and saw the results of their combat and repented. They swore an oath to each other to not let such devastation occur again. And so as the Third Age began, they divided Gaecia into territories, took their own children there to rule them. And so it has been for 3 millennia, each race living in their own lands, ruled by those who are both king and god. While they abide mostly within the constraints they set upon themselves, tensions are arising anew, and people begin to fear that a new war is on the horizon. Yeah, so that's the basis of the world. So yeah, it's basically, hey, those gods, those things that like, or spiritual. Yeah, you can just have a pint with one now. So let's start with humans because
Oh my
that is
goodness.
us. I mean, hopefully you're not boring. I try my very best to make them not boring. Yeah. So humans live in here, which is known as Akeran, Akeran. If you can't read my writing, which I don't blame you for. So yeah, they're this country right here. Can I highlight them in some way? That'll do. Yes. So yeah. So humans are kind of pioneers of civilization in this particular world. And then the cities that are built up there are kind of some of the largest and best and most prosperous and economically viable in Gaecia. And so from the capital city of Aethway, Aesme, who is god of humans, he kind of spurs them on to be as civilized and innovative and inventive as they possibly can be. So humans are kind of some of the best at business. And so they're kind of found across the whole world, kind of just traveling in caravans, which they kind of established, and they built most of the major roads. But like the human merchants are kind of considered the lifeblood of Gaecia. Aesme is a tad unusual. He doesn't actually rule from a throne. He doesn't rule actually as a king. Instead, kind of each city has a lord or council of lords who kind of rule like that city in the immediate surrounding area. And so that's kind of how Akarani is essentially run. Aesme himself prefers to just travel around his lands in disguise. So he helps the people in his lands in minor ways. So you might just help a poor man out of poverty, or you might just herd some wolves away from a sheep that was going to overwhelm whatever shepherd there was. And this kind of practice has kind of led to humans adopting kind of strict kind of social behaviors. Those are all very polite and civil to basically everyone because, like, if you meet him, like, you wouldn't know. So basically, they kind of adopt this principle of be nice to everyone because you never know who your literal god is, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's very Scandinavian.
They
They used to believe the same thing the same thing about Odin.
Yeah.
He'd wander by, and if you're ever rude to Odin, well, you'd regret it.
No, it's very true. I'd not considered that point. It's possible I nicked her somewhere. I nick lots of things from places without even knowing.
I think that's part of life as a DM, isn't it, though?
Well, like this one time I named an NPC after, like, completely subconsciously after an NPC from another game of the DM who was also playing in that game. So that was a fun moment. When everyone's like, I recognize the name of this NPC. Yeah. So that's kind of humans. However, so Ace May himself, he's kind of an angelic figure, so like wings and holy light and everything. When he chooses to be, when he's not in disguise. And so and he's traveling around. If kind of like anyone particularly impresses him, so it's like, oh, that dude, he's like a hero, or he's just a spiffing chap. He may choose to bless them, and when he blesses someone, they their firstborn child is an Asma. So if you don't know, they're kind of essentially angel people. So they kind of most of the time look like the regular dudes, but they kind of have this radiant energy within them, and some of them can like manifest wings or explode. With like radiant energy, and they're kind of cool. As a kind of, as a kind of,
And now they
yeah. So in this particular world, ASMR are kind of like, you know, being ginger essentially. It's not quite as common that, but it's like it's just a genetic thing that sometimes happens. And so these ASMR are like, because they're like children specifically blessed by the god, they're kind of generally considered as quite important in human society. And so they generally find themselves as like leaders or particularly great warriors, not least because they have that divine spark within them. Not all ASMR necessarily choose to be a good dude. Some of them like become fallen ASMR and like reject, like, you may have made me a little bit like a god, but no, I don't want this. And so a lot of them just retreat to society to live for themselves. Whereas others turn evil and they kind of become a bit of a problem because they got part of the power of a god and they want to murder you, which generally isn't fun. But yeah, that's kind of ASMR in general. Yeah. Yeah, that's humans in Akaran. Let me. Is there any questions about that before we carry on? Both from you guys and the chat. I am looking at chat, so if you want to ask a question, be my guest. Yeah, cool. Okay. Just hum a moment in case anyone's typing. Are we on a delay? Out of curiosity, I don't think we are we?
There's a little bit of a delay.
A little bit of delay. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Okay. Then I guess yeah, let's try and be semi-geographical with this. So let's go from Ekran to Hirana, which is where the halflings live. Where are halflings on my document? Sorry, I got this massive like 10-page document of all of this information.
I was very taken aback when I first opened it.
Yeah, I did
like,
tell you I went slightly over the top. This is just me.
Presented with a giant paragraph on dwarves right at the start.
I mean, alphabetical. Set is not for the
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So the halflings, their god is known as Isadale, so Isadale. And she's kind of this classic, motherly figure. Kind of if you think halflings, kind of, oh yeah, we like food and stuff, and she kind of very much embodies that kind of thing. So she has this very little, quaint little court, where she's kind of just queen. Like anyone who comes to her, you always have like a guaranteed meal, even if you're just like a Joe off the street. It's kind of a very lovely place to be, and it's kind of lots of people kind of try and take advantage of it because they're like, oh yeah, she seems motherly and nice, and like, I bet I can get her to sign this trade deal that's like, every week you will pay me 10 million quid or whatever. But in truth, she's actually quite strong when she needs to be. So kind of she has this adventurous history where she was kind of very martially skilled, and she there's myths and stuff about defeating particularly nasty monsters and stuff. And kind of this trait has been kind of passed on to halflings. So kind of in their later years, they're kind of more like how halflings traditionally are. So kind of hobbit holes and food, and it's all great. But kind of in their youth, halflings tend to have this mile-wide adventurous streak, and it's kind of a near tradition of the halflings to kind of go on some sort of journey at some point during their lives. Most of them aren't like a deadly adventuring work, but it's kind of just going off in Caroline to explore the world, or like just go on a hunting party for a few weeks or whatever. It's kind of part of halflings deal. They believe it's important to get these kind of real world experiences, so that then when you're the equivalent of 50 years old and kind of sitting in your comfy chair drinking hot chocolate all day, you kind of appreciate it all the more. And so it's kind of like they love their kind of comfortable life, but they feel like that kind of thing has to be earned.
Got to have a couple of knickknacks and mementos to talk about while
Exactly.
you have breakfast.
Yeah. So it kind of like it's kind of almost a proverb that no story is better than one you lived, kind of in halfling society. So they love stories. But yeah, so Haran is kind of it's mostly crops. They're mostly farms. So they are animal farms as well, but yeah, it's where a lot of the food in the world comes from, or a relatively large amount, let's say, and kind of Akaran and stuff kind of obviously trade them away because obviously they're right next to each other, which is convenient. Then we shall. Any questions about halflings, sorry, or Hirana or Isakeo
No.
or anything? Cool.
They just seem like you want to go on an adventure. You're a halfling. Let's go, lads.
Yeah.
This will not be the accent if I choose to do a halfling. I just want everyone to know that.
In halfling
That's very good
halfling,
thing
you're not
indeed.
bound by your law to make Irish halflings.
Well, no, but it's just an accent that's very easy to slip into,
Not
I
Excellent.
now can't stop doing the accent.
Put it back.
Put it back in the box, Riley.
Whenever I try and do an Irish accent, it kind of it starts out good for a little while, but I'm not able to maintain it for particularly long.
I was going to say you slipped into Welsh there.
Exactly. Exactly. I can't.
What's brilliant if you want to be Welsh PCs.
As much as I'd like to say keep the Irish accents to the people who are actually Irish heritage, you might want to put those back in the box.
I mean, yeah, I don't do very many good accents. I do a few voices, but not accents. Anyway, yes. If we're done with Hirana, we will move south to Weetha, which is kind of where the elves live. So, if you remember back to the beginning, obviously Salem, goddess of the elves, slightly did fratricide to her brother Ulfgar, and that was kind of a defining point in Elvish history, as one would imagine. Yeah, so elves obviously kind of generally very magically attuned. They like magic, and kind of before the Titan Wars, kind of elves had some pretty cracking cities. Anyway, all beautiful and magnificent, and they were glorious. At least high elves did, and then there were wood elves who they just chilled in the woods because they're nature bros, and that was all fine. then kind of join the Titan Wars because elves have such long lifespans, and kind of an super extended conflict that spans generations, like this one was. You kind of eventually start to have a numbers disadvantage, and kind of as the longest lived race who have to take the longest between population regeneration, let's put it, they were kind of driven very close to the brink of extinction almost, essentially dying out. And in fact, the Battle of Scarlet Peak, which is obviously where Ulfgar died, if the elves had lost that engagement, which it seemed they were going to before Ulfgar copped it, it was highly likely that elves would be able to bounce back in numbers. And you kind of think, if this goddess is super goddessy, why didn't she stop it? So it kind of, well, partially because you obviously have to defend yourself, because but part of the whole point of this kind of setting is that these gods are highly fallible. And in this particular case, Ceylon was too blinded by her very ancient feud with several of the other gods, including Ulfgar, to kind of see what was happening to her people. And so kind of obviously it just kind of all got out of hand. But yeah, during the battle, there's this chap known as Faudomir Drow, who basically loosed an arrow towards Ulfgar as he and Ceylon were fighting, and it kind of just knocked his head back, kind of like half an inch, the impact. That was kind of just enough for Ceylon's blade to kind of slip in, where it would have been, kind of deflected if he hadn't hit this arrow. And so it's kind of obviously Ceylon never intended to kill her brother. That was never her intent. It just kind of happened. It was kind of a mistake. But kind of after the battle, Drow's hair turned as white as bone, and his skin became as black as death, and became the first Dark Elf, or what is more commonly referred to as Drow, for obvious reasons. And yeah, so kind of him, and then eventually all his family kind of took on this demeanor, and no one particularly knows why. Whether it was like some curse that Ulfgar himself put on them, or it's some punishment from Salem to try and deflect the blame away from her, or it's just the universe, because obviously these gods had to come from somewhere, and with stuff that came before them. So obviously there's some other entities in the universe that are more powerful than these gods. So it's possible it was them that did it. No one really knows. However, these Drow, as they're known, are kind of essentially outcasts in our society, as one would kind of expect. And they kind of eventually were forced to live underground, if nothing else, because it was dark, so they wouldn't have to look at their own shame, as you can't see how white the hair is or how dark the skin is, because it's dark all the time. Sailor herself, and kind of the aftermath of this conflict, she kind of retreated into the kind of forest that's kind of the central to Weether, where a lot of Wood Elves live. She kind of disappeared into there for a year and a day, and she kind of eventually re-emerged dressed all in white, and she called for this chap known as Theandron Fail, who was a well-respected general during the Titan Wars, and kind of led the Elves in their absence. And she kind of took him as consort husband thing, and then he became king. And so kind of how our society is now run is there is some kind of chosen by the goddess, who is her ostensible consort, who acts as king, and then she kind of will advise and guide the case. But basically her reasoning is she is kind of from her position as a god, like how she perceived the world. She kind of didn't foresee things like, oh, my people are dying out. So she's kind of, so the principle behind it is, well, this dude's actually an elf. He knows what elves need, how they think, and all that. So the kind of the idea behind it is he knows what to do. But as an immortal goddess, I'll help, but he should be in charge. And kind of day to day, she kind of spends her time in this tower, which doesn't really have an exact location, or at least none that anyone can pinpoint. It's kind of one of those things where you only find it if the goddess wants you to, kind of thing.
That
Like
makes sense.
you're a particularly worthy adventurer seeking advice or whatever. Yeah, that's generally elves you've got to mention. No, yeah. So Wether itself, there's a few kind of high elvish cities. And there's kind of this main wooded bit where like wood elves and stuff live. You get like wood elves in the Fartorn woods as well, which are here. However, they're less common. But wood elves generally keep themselves to themselves unless they're like merchants or whatever. Yeah. Any questions?
So where are the drow? Are they in Wether and just outcasts, or are they just like full on somewhere else?
So some drow are literally kind of in the underground, so the Underdark, essentially below Wether. They're not particularly deep because you get too deep, you get all the nasty, gribbly things that we're here from before the gods exist, and they beat underground. So it's kind of the upper layer of the Underdark, if that makes sense. So they kind of mostly live in like this kind of area, approximately, because that's just how they naturally spread out. However, there'll be pockets kind of under certain places. So kind of in Cathania, there's probably a couple pockets, so they can come up and like trade resources and stuff. They're probably less so in the Badlands as a whole. There's probably a few entrances in the Gadwin and the Elgorn, because kind of mountains are a natural way down to the Underdark. Yeah, so they're kind of spread out, but they're mostly concentrated relatively near to Wether, but they are underground. You do get a few that live up top, but they're kind of in incredibly remote communities. So it'll be kind of a hamlet miles away from the road kind of thing. Just a dude who hunts for himself, provides for himself, all that kind of thing. I assume that's everything for elves and Wether. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one of the two fun things. So up here, that bit kind of just down here. Let me ping it. Boop. Where it says QU. That is in fact where gnomes live. And QU in fact stands for Queeks University. Queek, Quike. Queek. It's a kind of basically gnomish life is centered around this QU or Queeks University, and so they're a culture who thrives on learning, and essentially this one's like main university, and this kind of town, not quite city because there's not a whole lot of gnomes kind of around it. It's kind of the center of gnomish civilization, and kind of basically every gnome kind of attends this school in some form or another. And it's such an integral part of their society that you're not considered an adult until you've graduated. Now, they won't be doing like quantum mechanics or anything. They would kind of just be studying like blacksmithing. If they're from a family blacksmith, want to be a blacksmith, or might study to be like some merchant, so kind of essentially business studies, whatever. Or you might study to be a wizard or whatever. So kind of there's just very much a culture in around gnomes where they're learning, and kind of the more learned you are, the kind of more like higher up you are perceived to be within society, essentially. Queek himself, the god, his official title is headmaster of this university, and it's kind of a sign of pretty much the highest honor to be able to present like your research, your work that you've done to him. That's kind of like the pinnacle. That'd be like what's the thing above the PhD?
Masters is
No,
before PhD.
And there's nothing really above that in academia. But I
well,
guess
you get like professorship and stuff.
professorship.
Yeah, it's kind of that kind of level of super high thing. So basically,
you can be a professor without a PhD. So.
can you? Well, whatever. It's kind of the highest level of learning, essentially. And so basically, Creek himself, his MO is he wants to know as much as he possibly can, and so kind of he just sits there, and he has all these gnomes around you who kind of just feeds him as much information as he can possibly consume. He's an incredibly powerful wizard himself, of course. That's kind of what he does. That's kind of how gnomes are. It's kind of the main. I was talking about subraces, and rock gnomes are the kind of the ones who kind of live in the city, whereas forest gnomes kind of live in the main forest, kind of around that kind of tiny little bit of land that they have, and then it kind of commutes in essentially to do their learning before they go back to living in the forest. It's kind of most gnomes you see kind of out and about. They'll be performing some sort of study, be it a geographical survey, I heard there's ruins up this round to explore them, or that kind of thing. That's basically gnomes in Queen's University.
Can I just ask, are there deep gnomes? Are there Svinoslevelin, or is it just forest and rock?
Yes, there are. Was it Schwerfendublin? I can never.
I don't know. Deep gnomes or a collection of vowels and consonants that people throw together.
Yeah. So they're in Mordekainen, so they are in this campaign.
Yeah.
They're kind of separate. They're kind of gnomes who have kind of split themselves off from the main gnome society and kind of just decided, we'll live underground and just work and mine. We don't want to be learned. We'll just, chill, live the lives we want. Yeah.
Burnouts.
Well, they've probably been departed for generations to become a separate sub-race. But yeah. That's kind of how deep modes fit in.
Okay.
Yeah. A couple of things that I've cut from the sources. So for the benefit of the viewers, our sources that we're using for this campaign are PHP, DMG, Xanathar's Guide, Volo's Guide, Elemental Evil, and Mordekainen's. However, I've cut Triton and Gith because I couldn't really fit them in the world satisfactorily. I tried, but they just didn't work.
Gith are etched very hard. I couldn't think of a word then that I was going for to fit into a world.
This isn't really a kind of extra planar kind of setting. It's kind of difficult to fit an extra planar entity in. That's kind of what's going on. But everything else is kosher, including all the various alpha sub-races that I didn't mention in Volos, like Eladrin and Sea Elves and stuff. You can still be them. They'll just be flavored as a variation on Wood Elf or whatever. Tritons are awesome. I just couldn't think of a satisfactory way to fit them in. I'm very sorry.
Is it bad or great that I'm already thinking of like 20 character ideas for every race as you're going through them?
I mean, that's probably a good idea as far as I'm concerned, because that means I'm
but I can't play them all, Ferret.
It's something that I'm simulating your creative juices. That sounds really gross, but it's a good thing.
I don't want my creative juices touched by anyone, if that's okay.
You're just making a Hego face and just like, give me them creative juices, Dad.
Please don't. Please no. No.
Now I've mentally scarred you all.
Big nope. Big nope from here, Chief.
Oh dear. I'm very sorry to all of you who had to hear that.
You didn't have to say it.
I didn't, but I thought of it, so I thought I just had to inflict it upon you.
Thanks.
Yes, continuing vaguely geographically. Let's move down to the southern wastes and talk about them for a minute. So the southern wastes are kind of it's very deserty down there. Kind of very little naturally grows. It's a very harsh and very difficult place to live, which is why it hasn't been settled. And kind of from that border down is kind of a godless region. So you can see it spills off the bottom of the map because there is more down there. It's just not mapped yet because it's not generally known about to the common people. No one really knows why the gods never settled it. It's a bit of a weird mystery. But there are a few people who kind of reject the normal way of life. So you can't be human like, I don't like you, Aesme. No, I'm going to be me and live for myself. So you might, decide to completely reject all the gods because you're a massive atheist or whatever, and then you could go and live in the Seven Wastes. If you wanted to. It's not particularly pleasant there, but if you hate the gods that much, it's an option. And then in this place known as the Sikilix, it's kind of this very nasty place where you kind of whispers from another world can be heard. Is the way I put it in my notes. Um, and kind of this is demons from beyond the veil. This is not something characters know. This is me letting you all know so you know what's up. So kind of that's where demons are, and then kind of the people who get lost in Southern Wastes and kind of eventually find their way to the Sikilix, and they hear these whispers, are they kind of the words of demons kind of twist their minds and thinking, and they kind of become these people known as Sikalain, who are societies of demon worshippers. Which is one of the other reasons why you probably don't want to go to Southern Wastes, because you might either be converted to demon worship or sacrificed for it. So that's kind of a particularly a godless place. And then it's not particularly nice down there. You get all kind of terrible things. However, demons cannot walk through the veil from wherever they are to Gaecia. So kind of a technique they've made to get around this is they kind of take females of whatever race happens to be in a sick lion, and they will reproduce with them, and then a tiefling will be born who is literally a half demon in this particular world. So like tieflings are a method that demons have made to essentially get as much of them as they possibly can onto the material plane, essentially. Now, that doesn't mean tieflings are necessarily demonic or even evil. There are probably quite a few that aren't. Being born into a society of demon worshippers probably doesn't help matters on the not becoming super evil scale. However, it is not a guarantee. All tieflings do have this kind of pulling, kind of innate kind of drive that's part of their being that kind of guides them towards a dark path. However, they can choose to resist and avoid it. So that's kind of essentially where tieflings come from. They're not particularly common outside of the Southern Wastes because they're literally half demons. Most people aren't particularly fond of that, especially the gods. And so this is a world of like super uber high tiefling racism. So as I told you guys before, I'm not going to say no, you can't play tiefling, but be prepared. You're probably going to need a very good disguise, because there's a lot of people in the world who will kill you on sight. But yeah, that's the whole deal.
Seems like a fun-filled place for all the family.
Yeah,
Bring the kids. Come on holiday.
Yeah.
More
We didn't
bodies
want
to be
the baby
sacrificed.
anyway. Just let it get eaten by demon worshippers. It's fine. But yeah, that's kind of them. Then from one particularly not pleasant place in the world to another.
Oh joy! There's more.
The Midnight Forest.
Sounds quite nice.
Yeah, no.
It's got a nice name.
So the Midnight Forest is again, this is something we know. Actually, unless you're from here, what you know, the Midnight Forest is a particularly nasty place. Lots of nasty monsters. If you go in, you're probably not going to come out. But basically, that's where Yanti live. So obviously, if you want to be a Yanti pureblood, you would know this. And so there's this being known as Uthangor, who is ostensibly known as the Serpent God. However, they are not actually a god in terms of they are not related to the other gods. They are some entity that existed before them, but somehow was able to bargain to not be murdered by their gods during the Dark Wars, and kind of the gods kind of took pity on it and decided to grant it its life. they permitted it to dwell kind of towards the surface and then the dark, and then kind of gave it this little bit of jungle that became known as the Midnight Forest to kind of have as its own. It was heavily wounded in the battle where it submitted, and so it's kind of spent these millennia kind of recovering. It must be like 10, 12,000 years since kind of the Second Age started. That's how long it's been there, and it's kind of over time it's slowly got these travelers who were kind of wandering, and it kind of persuaded them to stay. The forest ain't so bad. I'll give you all sorts of powers, and like over time, it is eventually kind of acquired enough, like poor unfortunate humans and elves and whatever travelers, and they kind of converted them to what eventually became known as the Yanti, or the snake people. For those of you who don't know. And so kind of this nasty entity called Uthangor, he's essentially plotting to eventually take over overthrow the gods in the world and have it all for himself, itself. Obviously the gods themselves know that they kind of just don't think about the area too much. And kind of that is essentially its purpose. And then it kind of sends out Yanti pureblood. So if you wanted to be a Yanti pureblood, this is probably what you'd be doing. You'd be kind of sent out to learn about the world at large. So you might be need to get some magical kind of text from century, from like presumably from the First Age, and bringing it back for his power, or get the specific magical artifact, or just learn the best way to kill the King of Weether kind of thing. So that's kind of the vast majority of Yanti presence in the world at large. There's not a whole lot of them, so don't be too worried. But this entity has been gathering its power and growing its influence for 10, 12, however many thousand years. So it's probably not particularly nice, but again, you would only know any of that if you were a Yanti Plebet yourself, if you're planning on picking that particular race. Yeah. Any questions?
Forget that. You don't know it. The Midnight Forest. It's a lovely place. Again, bring the kids. Bring the dog. One to eat? What's one to eat? No, nothing here.
It's a kind of Mexican beverage.
Juan tea.
Roll in with it. Come for the D&D.
Yeah.
Stay for the absolute awful attempts at humour.
Yeah. I mean, that is my entire personality, just a collection of bad jokes that somehow manifested. So yeah, that's Midnight Forest. So we're a bit nicer. We've got the Thaltorn Woods, and it's kind of where it's mostly where furbolgs live. They're kind of the biggest population. We do get the occasional like forest gnome or wood elf or whatever kind of living there as well. And so over here is the god of the furbolgs, Fahir. He's kind of odd one out. He doesn't particularly enjoy fighting. And right, he did it when he had to, when there were giant nasty things from the dark times in his face. His kind of main concern was always the effects of God action. He was like, we're this collection of super powerful entities. Maybe we shouldn't try not to accidentally break the world or get our race of children accidentally extincted. So he kind of initially, when the gods made all the fauna and flora in the world, he was kind of dubious, because he was kind of, I don't know if bringing all this life is a good thing. Oh, it seemed weird to me. But kind of through this kind of unsurety he had, he kind of took his time to look deep into them. And kind of as he did, he was like, oh my god, the ecosystems, they're so beautiful. And look how they're all connected. Butterflies are great, aren't they? And then he was like, oh yeah, this is great. This is awesome. Love nature. And then the gods were like, so you know all that nature, let's make man to chop down trees and make houses made of wood. And he was like, hang on a second, we don't want to do this. And so kind of the gods again kind of made the races, and he was kind of still a bit, this we don't want this. And it was true, kind of people, cut down trees and they took animals and they tamed them, and they're like, just, cow, you're no longer a wild animal, you're a farm animal. We're going to raise you and eat you. And he kind of didn't like that. So he kind of confronted the other gods, and they were like, "Oh, well, no, this is fine. It's fine. That's why we've made the cow, so he could be a food for Jeff." Like, and so like, "Oh, if you care so much about nature, you should make your own race to protect it." And so he did. And then Thurbos existed, who are these lovely cow people. They kind of have this innate connection to nature. And so that's kind of what he did. He kind of made the Furbolgs now. Furbolgs kind of following his instructions. They kind of look after nature in the various parts of the world. Then we found all over Gwent, so you can find them pretty much anywhere where there's nature to provide the balance. However, they kind of consider their main homeland to be Faltorn Woods, because
Aren't we
it's
in
the
Gaecia?
largest. Yes, Gaecia. I speak. They kind
You
of
do the
consider,
English well, Ferret.
yes, they consider Faltorn Woods to be kind of their homeland because it's the largest singular natural entity. So they kind of, all of that region is just one massive forest, including the Midnight Forest. They kind of don't view that as separate. They just know there's something there that's a bit nasty, and you probably don't want to go there. So they kind of consider this main woodland kind of sacred. As you can see, like the nations has kind of pushed into them. So you can see this kind of hollowed out bit, kind of here and here, where they've kind of gone into the woods to get wood and stuff and resources, and they've kind of had to spend generations kind of fighting that off. And kind of it has slowly stopped that, kind of defining the shape of the woods, but it is considered kind of culturally significant to them, even if they don't have like a massive city capital from where they rule. But yeah, it's kind of furbolgs generally. Don't you have any other comments?
So do they all just have a birthmark under the fur that just says "Not for Jeff"?
um, I think that's a common tattoo. So kind of it's like the "I heart mom." It's not for Jeff, kind of thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Coolly. Oh, then let's move way up north to the the kind of big empire, which is Cathania. So let me find the correct bit in my notes. Here we go. Okay, yeah. So Cathania is essentially where Dragonborn and Lizardfolk and Cohort live, and so they're kind of all one society in kind of 3 tiers. So the Dragonborn themselves, actually, let's start with the god. So Tuthok is their god. He's Lord of the Dragons. He's also the very oldest and possibly the most powerful god. So he's kind of the first one to kind of appear on Gaecia. Before the Dark Wars began, he kind of he faced and defeated the kind of cruelest and most nastiest of the things from that nasty time. And he was kind of considered the de facto kind of leader of the gods for quite a long time. But kind of he initially had this group of children who were the actual true dragons. It kind of from the darkness, like the energy that kind of created the gods and created everything, was this thing known as the primordial storm. Then as the gods took over and brought order to the world, the kind of strength of this storm diminished. It's kind of this storm that gave Tuthok and indeed the true dragons their power. And so kind of he knew that as time went on, this power would slowly diminish and his dragons would die. And so he took the dragons and then he essentially reshaped them and reforged them into the Dragonborn, essentially. So there's this kind of like the initial Dragonborn, there is a collection of possibly 100, made from each kind of color of true Dragonborn. And so Dragonborn can trace by their color their lineage back to a specific dragon who did specific things. And so that's kind of why they have the powers they do, so like the flame breath and stuff. It's kind of that legacy of the fact that they were once actually dragon. They're fairly few in number, but because they're like these super special descendants and leaders, they're kind of the top layer of Cathanian society. They're kind of the leaders, the generals, the kings, and so forth. And it's kind of the role they play. As a kind of after he turned the dragons into Dragonborn, he then made the lizard folk and kobolds. We'll get to them in a minute. Once he'd made all of them, he made their society. Again, because he was powered by this primordial storm, like his personal energy was failing, and so he, after making sure his people were set, he kind of went to this massive cavern, which is underneath the Cathan, which is the capital city, and he kind of literally just sleeps there forever. Or supposedly forever. And kind of on top of that, they built this massive citadel, and kind of every generation, a Dragonborn is chosen by the voice of the god, and they kind of act as a steward, and they're known as the Warden King, and they are kind of this chosen Dragonborn, normally because they're a mighty warrior who has been chosen by the god to lead. They kind of speak with the voice. There's notable change. No one knows exactly what happens, whether their mind is dominated, because they all kind of adopt a similar personality over time, no matter how they started. But yeah, they're kind of chosen, and they kind of sit on this throne and they rule as the god would. Cathania is a very militant place. It's basically a dictatorship ruled by this Warden King, or the god through the Warden King, however it exactly works. No one's really entirely sure. But yeah, kind of after the dividing, just before Tuathok went to sleep, Cathania was the largest kingdom. It wasn't as large as it was. It was kind of more swoop, more like that. But kind of because they have this very militant kind of society, kind of during the Titan Wars, which no, sorry, I mistold you. So Cathania was like that after the Dark Wars, not the Titan Wars before the land was divided. He kind of that was an original division, so that was kind of the first nation to be made. When the rest of it's still kind of homogenous, and the gods will just or the races of the world as one. Cathania was kind of separate because obviously kind of their god was a de facto leader. He was kind of sleeping. It was kind of a courtesy thing. Then during the Titan Wars, it was all kind of chaotic. They kind of the Warden Kings over the several generations, they kind of took advantage, and they kind of had very harsh expansion. And so they kind of essentially took over all this land, which is eventually modern day Cathania. And kind of during the dividing, like it was like, oh, should we get this land back? Oh, we're not really sure. We don't particularly want to upset the guy who's probably the god who could probably kick the asses of all the other gods. So they kind of just left it as it was, which is why it's so massive. Yeah. So Cathania is this. It's very militant, as I say. It's got is lizard folk, so they kind of perform skilled labor generally. So kind of more smithing or architecture stuff that wouldn't be done by the leaders who are Dragonborn. They're like the masses of the legions. They are lizard folk, even if the sergeants and generals are actually the Dragonborn. They kind of fulfill the main rank and file, but because of their nature, they're kind of utilitarian. They kind of they train very well. They make very good soldiers, which is one of the reasons why they were so effective and got such massive expansion during the Titan Wars, because they were such a strong, centralized fighting force, and even to this day, the legions of Cathania are probably not just because of the size, but even if they were relatively scaled up, Cathania would probably still be by far the best singular military force in the world because of the kind of utilitarian nature of their society. So kind of lizard folk themselves kind of because they're kind of more animalistic, they kind of don't really get art or like any kind of finery. And so like just a human or an elf kind of walking in a lizard folk part of a city would just seem kind of, I don't know, kind of weirdly empty. Like, would just seem ridiculously uniform. There'd be people walking up and down the street, but wouldn't just be having a conversation, just be walking up and down, going to the place they need to go. It's kind of surreal almost.
Yeah.
But it's highly efficient. Like, they have a super good economy and all that. It's just really weird to anyone who's not a lizard folk because their brains just kind of work differently. And then kobolds, they're kind of the underlayer. They kind of fulfill kind of menial tasks, so just stuff like mining or fetching, all that kind of thing. They're not slaves. They're kind of respected, kind of as life. Obviously, created by the same god, and they kind of treat them fairly and allow them a certain amount of freedom to live their lives as they wish. So as I say, kind of a traveler might find lizard folk of the part of the city kind of boring. Kobold kind of dens that kind of tend to be towards the outside. They're a lot closer to the kind of ghettos in terms of like they're super rammed in, but they're super vibrant and bustling. Okay, kobolds kind of have this policy where they just live their lives to the fullest, and it's kind of not atypical for a kobold to spend a day's pay by morning. They just spend it all on food and drink and partying or whatever, kind of every single day. Take every day as it comes. They kind of have these strong social bonds, and they kind of have a main social circle, and that's the group they do their work with. So if they're miners, that's just the people they mine with, and then you drink with them after work, and then you probably sleep in the same like building, like house. You might have separate bedrooms and stuff, but you kind of live with the same people. And they're probably the people you're going to repopulate with, and then they just have these very strong sense of companionship. However, they do have this kind of avarice of dragons, kind of obviously because they were made by the dragon god, and it kind of manifests in a very strong selfish streak. And so kobolds are famous for remembering any minor slight or insult until it is repaid, and then it's forgotten. How it repaid depends. It might just be a childish prank. So if you just kind of knocked them in the street, you might be followed by a kobold, and then you might find, oh, someone's tied my shoes together or whatever. Or if it's more serious, they might pickpocket you or whatever. So that's kind of they're considered kind of like children to an extent, but they are kind of fully developed people, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of the basics of Cathania and its three main denizens. I should probably say, as I say, you kind of got this bit. There's original Cathania. These bits were then conquered. They're not just Dragonborn, Lizvolk, and Kobolds. You will get, like, obviously those bits here that are originally human territory. You do get quite a lot of humans in there, even if the guns and stuff are actually Dragonborn themselves and stuff like that. So kind of this border region, you do get a lot more variety. It's not completely segregated by race. Yeah.
You said that the Dragonborn were created from dragons. Do dragons still exist in the world, or is it just Dragonborn now?
So, Tufok himself is actually a dragon, although he's sleeping. So he definitely exists, but he's probably not going to do anything unless you really shake the world.
That's the campaign goal, guys. Get him to wake up.
Yeah. I mean, they're generally happy with their lives. Like, They are awake.
Dragonborn propaganda. Don't believe it.
So step 1, free the kobolds. Step 2, wake up the sleepy boy.
Just get a
Step
kobold
3,
to
profit.
jump up and down at the same time, and that'll wake him up. There you go.
Okay, to be fair, freeing an entire tier of the society he created would probably be enough.
Yeah. Yes. In terms of true dragons, maybe there might be a few left over,
Okay.
but they'd be like super duper hidden. So it's not that there are no dragons in the campaign; it's just there's no obvious ones that people know about.
Okay.
There's stuff like wyverns that aren't true dragons, stuff like that still existing.
Interesting.
Like fairy dragons, all that, they're all still around. It's just the like classic true dragon. You're highly likely to see them.
Yeah.
If you are, they've probably been sequestered underground for millennia, or you annoy the god and he manifests one in your face. That's possible. Gods can do that.
Well, they're gods. Who's going to stop them?
Well,
Other gods.
exactly. Other gods, or possibly super high level adventurers.
I'm curious. They would presumably, if there are true dragons remaining, they in some way defied Toothock.
I mean, maybe it's difficult. Maybe that could be something you want to find out if you're a known for university. Do dragons exist? Are they a myth? Oh, that could be
Why are they still dragons when they should be dragonborn?
exactly.
So
I mean, I'd be
it's-
down
it's-
for that.
Or it's just a dragonborn that wants to be a dragon again. Just, I want to have wings and fly and stuff.
Did you mean Belthar Wormfang?
That is certainly the Google search result.
Anyway, yes, these are all the questions we have from Cathania, both on stream and not.
So Britty's playing a kobold.
Yeah.
Or a dragonborn. You could be sympathetic to the cause.
Oh. Yeah, let's move north once more to the Ogon Mountains. This is kind of where dwarves are. So, naturally, in the wake of Scarlet's Peak, Dwarven society was slightly changed, given their king and god was slightly dead.
Slightly.
Yeah, so kind of immediately after the battle, he was lying. He was wounded. He wasn't instantly killed. So he's lying, kind of mortally wounded, kind of bleeding out essentially, and because he was god, like they're different. There's nothing that can really be done. So his final instructions to his dwarves was to take his dying body and place it on his throne in their capital city. He also ordered for certain magical components and contraptions to be placed around him, and then the throne room was to be sealed and never disturbed again, ever. So as he kind of lost consciousness, the dwarves did as he commanded. They took his body, placed it on the throne, carried all the various magic components and items and stuff, and put them in, and kind of as the very last life signs from the god were feigning his pulse was, or whatever the equivalent is in the god, I don't know. It was kind of getting ridiculously faint. They kind of then sealed the throne room and literally never to be opened again. Never have opened it because it's super mega sealed shut. There's like magical wards and everything you can't teleport in. All of that. So it's super duper sealed. And then for a week and a day after it was sealed, and super intense magical power emanated from the room. Like you didn't even magic protect you just stood remotely near, and by remotely near I mean somewhere in the city. You felt this super intense power. What Ovgor did in his final moments is unknown, and that's kind of key to how dwarves perceive society. Some choose to believe that he was somehow able to preserve himself, and that one day his chosen warrior will come and release him from the shackles of death, and he'll be super good again. Some say he became one with the mountains, and his spirit still lingers It kind of guides his people through signs and omens, even if he can't physically. Regardless of what he did, some elements of his power must exist in the world, because he still has clerics, and they're still able to channel divine power, like in his name, using his symbols, and do things they always could. And he's able to like touch certain children, bestow in destiny, so like divine soul sources, all that kind of thing. So he still exists, and no one knows how, why, what it. Like, a god's never died before. Even the gods themselves don't know what's up, or if they do, they've never, let's say. Which, to be fair, there's a lot the gods don't tell people. Stuff like what happened in the Dark War. It's like, we're not going to tell you. So there's a lot they keep themselves. So it's entirely possible they do know what happened. But if they do, they've not let on to anyone. And so, kind of in the wake of this, the dwarves kind of divide into 6 clans, each dwelling in one of the peaks, or the major peaks, and what became the Elgorn Mountains. So, Clan Thandor are the custodians of Elcor's throne, and kind of their greatest warriors kind of stand guard over it 24/7, 365 for the 3 million years since he died. Not million, 1,000. And again, it's kind of it's a mark of, you're a super good warrior because we're getting you to guard our god who might be dead. We assume he's dead, but he's not necessarily. We don't know. But it's super honorable to just stand there all night. And so kind of this Clan Thandor are the largest, most influential, and are kind of often treated as the de facto head clan when there's all kinds of various tension stuff between the various dwarves. So obviously mountain dwarves are from the actual mountains themselves, but there's kind of this border region that's kind of, highlands, kind of hilly regions kind of thing. That's where hill dwarves are from. But there aren't actual cities and stuff. They kind of just rule themselves on a town by town or village by village basis, much like the 6 peaks, the 6 clans and 6 peaks and the 6 cities there kind of rule themselves. So kind of each town will have a mayor who's elected presumably, and then they just run that town and the immediate area. So that's kind of how dwarven life is kind of run after their gods copped it. As one might expect, dwarves are not particularly big fans of elves. And it's kind of... and it is forbidden for just any elf to tread in many important places within Dwarvish heartland, so kind of these 6 peaks. The main area, like one of the main thing is no elf is allowed within a 5-mile radius of Elfgore's throne room or tomb, however you want to think of it. Naturally, elves don't particularly like dwarves back, partially because the dwarves almost drove elves to extinction. Obviously, it's kind of, there's been lots and lots of generations since that time. It's just devolved, and no one knows exactly why they began hating each other. Whatever conflict started the Titan Wars between Caitlin and Ulfgore, but it's kind of just a de facto. Elves hate dwarves with passion. Dwarves hate elves with passion. There's very few exceptions. Notably, most dwarves who don't want to be seen as some sort of race traitor will kill a drow on sight, because they are the descendants of the Godslayer elves, essentially. So they won't kill elves unless they're a drow normally. They just really, really don't like them. Yeah. Is there any questions about dwarves and stuff?
Dwergar, are they?
Yes. So they're Mordecaians, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes, I believe they are. Yeah, so they're kind of dwarves who've kind of segregated themselves away from the rest of Drawn society and kind of dug lower, and they live deeper. They've kind of gone down a different path.
Do they still maintain the hatred of drow, or is there sort of a underdark kinsmanship?
I'll probably depend on a case by case basis.
Cool.
Because depending when the particular Durgar separated, they may not have heard that Ulfgar died, and they may or may not be thankful for that, because these Durgar would have deliberately separated themselves from the rest of the dwarves, possibly because they didn't like the fact, oh, you're a god and ruling us, I don't like that. So it's possible they might be thankful that the god's dead if they had some particular reason to hate them, kind of thing. So definitely be a case by case basis, depending how recently they became Durgar, essentially. Okay,
Cool.
Yeah.
so that's dwarves and the Olagorn Mountains. So we get into the end, not too many left. So we got
Some of the more weird and wonderful races now.
yeah, Kachujik Plateau. Katachik, however you want to pronounce it. I don't even know. I just made a funny word.
I'm just birds.
Yeah. So that's where orcs live. And they are the sons
I was
of-
wrong.
and the sons and daughters of Ormus. He is their god. So much like them, he is strong and brutish. And while you can often seem simple-minded, the god himself underneath has this surprising cunning that is occasionally passed on to particularly more brilliant of his children, then go on to be leaders and stuff. He lives with his children on the Katuchik Plateau, which is basically an expansive tundra plain. It's quite cold, not particularly great place to live, unless you're an orc, obviously. Orcs love it. And here he drives directly among them. He lives by their side. He hunts with them. He fights with them. He drinks with them. He's basically just an orc who is immortal and particularly good at fighting. And yet, so orcs value strength, and so Ormus is very strong. So rightly, they value their god a lot. And it's very much a tradition for orcs to seek him out and then try and prove themselves by challenging the god to various trials at arm. He's never lost, but the various accolades come from how badly you lost or how not badly you lost. So stuff like if you draw blood from the god, that's particularly impressive. Or if you survive a duel for a certain length of time, like a minute or 5 minutes, it's considered particularly impressive, and you'd be known for that. That's something you'd walk up to a girl in the bar and be like, "Hey, I fought Ormus and I drew blood," and she'd drop her pants immediately. It's a particularly good statement. And orcs who achieve these accolades often change their name to become respectful of their achievement, and they instant respect among all their fellow orcs. And they generally go on to lead temporary war bands or tribes or whatever. So orc society is fairly fluid. There's no set, we are clan Skullface and we are the same orcs. It's kind of fluid, so they'll kind of intermingle, and you're kind of with whatever orcs are with for whatever reason. So you could be, well, I feel like hunting boar, I'll go with these people because they're also hunting boar at the moment. Or, you know what, I fancy having a pop at a dwarven citadel, I'll go with these guys, will be a warband and go and fight them. So it's kind of fluid. It's not a set, this is my tribe, I was born in this tribe, I'll live this tribe forever.
It's more like orcs is orcs.
Yeah. They're kind of one big society, and it's kind of fluid exactly where we are. You will have, hey, that's Jeff, he's my best friend. I'll probably do a lot of stuff with him. I will not see him for a couple of years. When I do, we'll have a big hug, get drunk, probably fight each other, and have a good time with it. Yeah. So that's kind of how orc society generally works.
Sounds like my friends.
Any orc that particularly impresses Ormus might be invited to join his hunt, and that is a group of the most elite warriors, not just among orc kind, but probably all of Gaecia, that seek down to take down only the most powerful prey. So we're talking stuff like wyverns or particularly big and nasty hydra, stuff like that. So it's kind of a great honor to be part of these hunts. There are a few non-orcs who have sufficiently impressed Ormus that he's invited them to join the hunt, but they're kind of few and far between, mostly because he doesn't really interact with many people who aren't orc. But if you are a particularly great warrior, orcs will probably respect you. They might want to fight you, but they probably won't kill you if you prove yourself. If they fight you and you prove to be wimpy, they'll kill you. But if you prove to be a good fighter, they're probably not going to kill you because they respect strength. And so, like, if you're a particularly strong fighter, you're able to live among orcs quite well if you're so inclined. You can find help from them, and obviously from Oz himself, if you choose to, or that kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of orcs. I'll quickly mention half orcs because they're kind of important. So whereas regular orcs generally appreciate kind of more physical strength, kind of due to their whatever their other half is, half orcs are generally able to recognize other kinds of strength. So you could have a politician who's an old, doddery old man, but he's ridiculously sharp at like negotiating or arguing or whatever. Kind of half orcs, kind of outside of the plateau, they seek out individuals who are strong in other ways to kind of be their aid or work in that kind of way, be it like a particularly powerful merchant, some religious leader, or an underground crime boss. They kind of half orcs kind of integrate with the rest of the world kind of along those lines. So being a half orc's friend is kind of reflective that half orc sees something good in you, essentially. Yeah. Any questions on orcs?
Other than the fact I clearly have a character who was born in the wrong setting.
Is that the Kowad dude? I forget his name. You told me about him.
Oh no, Script would do great with the orcs. No,
Yeah.
I think Matt's talking about Froki.
No, or
Aurelie would also do well, but yeah, Froki would do well as well.
Yeah. Okay. So that is orcs. Let's naturally move on to goblins. I love goblins. They're kind of a joke, but I love them. So
I'm here now.
their god is called Drizithik.
Yes.
Driz apostrophe ITHK. Drizithk. So he's possibly the lowliest god, cowardly and deplorable because he's a god of goblins, and so he's martially is weaker than his fellows. He's not particularly great in combat unless he's sneaking up behind someone, stabbing him in the back. So there's no way he could compete really with pretty much any other god, but he's still immortal and particularly resilient. So if another god's beating down on him, he's unlikely to die, and that seems to be his strength, is his ability to take a beating. That's his main redeeming factor. He's very much just a superpower, not superpower, a mortal goblin, who just has the same desires and stuff as goblins. So initially, when he tried to create a race, he wasn't particularly creative, so he just made goblins who are very much like himself. So they're kind of individually weak. They don't have a lot of virtue. Goblins all hate each other because the god hates himself, and he kind of made them in his image. But despite their weakness, goblins kind of, they can have strength together, especially in numbers, and they've kind of prospered due to whatever primitive cunning, little cogs that go in their brain go zzz, and they're famed for their particularly strong, successful fight or flight reflex. They know when to fight and they know when to fly. But it's kind of as he made them and he was like, these are a bit crap because they're just like me. You kind of just left them for a while, and then they kind of just populated as goblins do, like rabbits. And then because there was a lot of them, the collective strength of their worship kind of empowered him. And so he kind of tried to use them as his army to try and take over the rest of the world. It wasn't particularly successful. And kind of to this day, goblins kind of enact on this order. They try and live in the lands of other people and try and raid and take them down, but they don't have a lot of success. Most of the other gods, they're not big fans of Drizithik. However, he's their brother, so they can't really do a whole lot. So they just tell their children, just be wary of goblins. If there be a nuisance, kill them, but try not to. If you don't have to. But with all this power of all the goblins' faith in him, Druzith was like, right, I'm going to have another go. I'm going to make another race. And so he made the bugbears. And he was like, oh, I see those orcs. You're a warrior race and you're super strong and powerful. And so he made bugbears who are tall, powerful, and savage. However, they're insufferably lazy and stubborn. And try as he might, Druzith was just like unable to crowd them into anything like enough of the cohesive fighting force to threaten more than like a small village. And so while bugbears are nasty fighters, you do not want to be caught by one. Like, they're just incredibly self-serving and lazy, and they don't really do a whole lot. So they're kind of a flop in his goal to take over the world. So he just abandoned hope with them. He just let them off into Gaecia at large, and they kind of do what they do. They're small gangs just kind of hunt and live for themselves. Occasionally attack a settlement, but not really, because like people have weapons, and that's just a bot. And yeah, I mean, it's so much easier to just knock a rabbit on the head than a dude in plate armor. Like, yeah. Yes, so bugbears were a bit of a flop. So we had one final go with like the very last vestiges of his godly power, and he made the hobgoblins. He really wanted to make the perfect warrior race. So he kind of wanted to mix like elements like the warrior split of the dragonborn. He's like, oh, we want to be super cohesive and industrious like humans, so they could work together and be like super great. And yeah, hobgoblins are very martially minded, strong senses of unity and racial cohesion. However, they also have this large independent streak, and the intelligent look at their god and go, ew, you're kind of awful as a god. We don't want you as a god. We're going to be us. And so they literally just looked at the dude who made them and was like, nope. And they kind of just went off to live on their own. So they kind of built their towns and villages along the river Separi, which is kind of one of the biggest rivers in Gaecia. And kind of they wish to conquer and fight because he Isildur with them. So they want to take over the world, just not with Druzith. And so they make these big warships, and they kind of launch seasonal piratical raids kind of all along this eastern coast, kind of along the plateau where the orcs are, kind of in Gandawin. And they can kind of go up and round. You can't quite see on the map. You can kind of go up and round to Cathania, and then eventually down to kind of here, but that's a particularly long voyage. So you kind of do pirate stuff. Unfortunately, there's not a massive amount of them, so they don't really have the population essentially to actually conquer the world or threaten it in any meaningful way. So they do try and do land things occasionally, but most of what they do is just kind of coastal raiding and kind of piracy and stuff. They kind of, that's a merchant vessel, we'll nick that. But yeah, so they are incredibly, martial, intelligent, and they are a good society. They just hate their god. So Druzith is kind of the punching bag of the gods, and I kind of love him for that. And so kind of in his failure, he kind of just sequestered himself away in the Crooked Peak, which is here. And he kind of basically surrounds himself with his very first goal, which is the goblins, who he hates and hates him and hates himself, and he hates himself. And he just languishes in misery, and he beats them around because they're pretty much the only race he can beat around. And he gets them to do what he can, and he's like basically now just sad and fat on whatever his throne he is. And yeah, so kind of the Crooked Peak kind of swarms of goblins who all serve him and bring him like massive meals. Yeah, he kind of just stays there now. All his hopes and dreams of conquering the world kind of gone bust for the time for the time being, at least. So that's kind of all the goblinoids. I don't know if you have any questions.
The tiny, tired tyrant.
I just feel bad for him.
I quite like.
I mean, he wants to murder you, so I wouldn't feel too bad for you.
I quite enjoy that. Like, the god of the goblins is essentially a Saturday morning cartoon villain.
Yeah, I know. That was kind of one of the things I was going for. Like, I don't want to all. I don't want to be super serious. I kind of, knew how to put some comedy in it somewhere. I think this is kind of a tasteful way of doing it. Thank you. Yeah. So we're almost done. There's only a couple of races left. So as you kind of move down to the Gandwin Mountains. So two main races that live here. Oh, sorry, there's 4 races I still have to talk about. Yes. No, 5, and 3 of them live here. There we go. Okay, so kind of living in the Gangwin are the Aarakocra. So that's kind of main home. They're kind of in the very tops of the mountains, and they have what's known as their Aries, because they're birds. And kind of Eater of the Windlord, so Ytril, Eatril. He's kind of obviously the father of the Aarakocra. He could take several forms. So one's like a giant bird, so kind of a giant eagle, sorry, bigger than a rock. ROC, the monster, not a boulder. An avian humanoid, kind of like the Aarakocra, or you can even term himself in kind of just this massive swirling air, kind of a raging hurricane type thing. So Aarakocra and Eatril, they are proud and haughty, and suffer kind of no insult. They're kind of are not people you want to make upset, because they'll remember it forever. They kind of keep themselves to themselves, not particularly communal, although they might perform trade and stuff if you're nice. Obviously, not all Aarakocra like this is just a general assumption. So I say Gaecia. There's a few Gaecia who also live in those mountains. They kind of have friendly competitions with the Gaecia tribes who is there. They're kind of commonplace, and they kind of it's kind of their way of not fighting each other. So they have these like physical competitions. It's like a contest of like wrestling or whatever, instead of going to war. And whoever wins these kind of competitions, they get the prime hunting ground this season, or they get to trade with this particular person, or whatever disagreement the tribes have. So they kind of satisfy their highly competitive needs without killing each other through these competitions. And that's kind of the way peace is kept in the mountains, broadly. Yeah, so that's kind of Aarakocra. Now, Eater was kind of a harsh lord who's not particularly forgiving. And if you really super duper mega piss him off and you're an Aarakocra, he can turn you into a Kenku. So it's kind of the curse of the Kenku. So you kind of silence, you have to mimic your unoriginality, so you can't. That's kind of part of what they do. And also, you can't fly, which is kind of the main thing. There's kind of 3 prongs of the curse of the Kenku. And then they're kind of banished from the Aries, so kind of banished from Aarakocra society. A Kenku has to try and live and survive on its own. If they get down the mountain without being able to fly, they've kind of done well. So there's a small group of Kenku kind of live at the very base of the mountain, and they kind of guide people up. And kind of the reason they do this is they hope that by aiding Aarakocra society in some way, they might eventually redeem Ichiro's forgiveness, although it hasn't really happened yet. Kind of most Kenku just kind of give up on that dream, and they kind of just go out into the world at large and do Kenku things, kind of just trying to live for themselves as best as they possibly can. Yes, Goliath. Okay, so Goliaths don't just live in the Gandwin, they live in any mountainous region. So that is the Gandwin, the Elgord Mountain, and the Crooked Peak itself. Although there's less there because there's a lot of goblins and they're just a pain. So they kind of consider the masses of the mountain. They're the children of Castor, and their culture is based on the classic lifestyle, so individual strength and success. Because they value this individuality, Castor has very little direct influence over them, and he's kind of sits on the top of Castor's Peak, which is kind of the tallest peak of the Gandwin. And he kind of just sits there and he observes all. I suppose he can see the whole world and everything that happens up there. And kind of he just never moves. He's sat there ever since the end of the Titan Wars. and kind of Goliaths just let him be because they're happy being individuals, because that's how Goliaths are. So kind of lives in healthy competition, and like anyone who wants to trade with Goliath, you obviously have to prove yourself somehow. But yeah, Goliaths are very similar to regular Goliaths. So if you want more, you can just look in the book. Got 2 final races to discuss, and they don't have any particular homeland. So that is Gaecia and Tabaxi. We'll start off with Gaecia. So if you remember back when I was talking about what's his name? I remember my own gods. Tuthok, the god of the Dragonborn. He kind of was powered by the primordial storm that kind of existed before the gods came about, whatever that's about. And kind of Gaecia, they actually predate Tuthok himself. They were kind of forged from this kind of elemental primordial storm, chaos, whatever you want to call it, first. And so kind of they're one of the last few legacies of that time. Another good example being obviously the serpent god of the Yanti, Uthangor. So back then, when there was lots of elemental chaos and stuff, they were super powerful. So they were close to the actual genies, which Gaecia typically come from. But kind of over time, as these energies have dispersed and they're a lot weaker, obviously Gaecia have been brought down to the level of that they naturally are, so kind of much closer to just regular dudes, and they're basically a dying race. And like with less of this elemental energy, like it's harder and harder for Gaecia pairings to have children, essentially. And so kind of they sided with the gods in the wars because they also didn't like what other nasty entities they were. However, they don't remember much of it because they don't live that long. Relatively got they don't live that long. So it's been many generations since then. But they kind of sided with the gods, is why they were allowed to live. However, they kind of spend their time at the edges of society, kind of just living their life as they can, kind of just making the best of it before their race eventually dies out in however many generations it is. But relative to the end of the Dark Wars, it's probably not that long to go before they do die out. Yeah, it's kind of sad with Gaecia, but that's kind of how they are. And finally, Tabaxi. So they have the goddess Tamalia. So she is the youngest god. She came into existence kind of towards the very end of the Dark Wars, so she had very little part in them. And so kind of actually arrived, she was curious about all of her siblings, and so she kind of went up to them and got to know them, and she got to know each of them very closely. And so where most of the gods have all these various rivalry between them, almost all the gods have some good relation to Tamalia. So when the races were made, she chose to abstain. She kind of trusted in the skill of all her brothers and sisters to do a good job. And she kind of acted as a mediator between them. It was like, oh, you're thinking about making reptile people. Well, he's also thinking about reptile people. Maybe you should go more mammalian kind of thing. So she kind of helped the whole process go along. And then kind of obviously once they're made, she acted as a neutral party in ruling them, so she had no bias towards any particular race. And obviously that kind of bias was what initially sparked the Titan Wars. But she did her best to prevent them. But like she's only a one god against like 12 others. It caused her, like, she wasn't particularly happy with it. It caused her great pain to watch her siblings fight, because she has limited foresight, which most of the gods don't. But she could perceive that the Titan Wars would not end well. And so kind of when Ulfgor died, and everyone else was kind of reeling in shock, like, gods can die? What the hell? Like, she kind of led breaking of peace, and she kind of she was the one who set in motion the idea to kind of divide Gaecia, to kind of keep gods with the ones they created, and kind of that will prevent bias and try and stop stop all the fighting that had been happening. And then once it was dividing, she decided that was time to introduce the world children of her own. Kind of much like her, they were feline in nature, according to Tabaxi. Much like her, when she initially came to the world, they were filled with they're just a sense of wonder and curiosity. And she kind of instills in each Tabaxi a deep-seated love for all of the races, much as she loves all of her siblings. And so she sent them out, sent the Tabaxi out into the world to explore it, to learn all they could about all the various races and gods, so that much like her, they could act as kind of mediators and kind of try and broker peace and kind of keep everything as safe and happy as it is. After she did that, she herself turned away, and nothing solid is known about her since the day she created the Tabaxi and sent them to walk Gaecia. Some people say that she walks and she treaties and meets with all her fellow gods and she discusses with them. Some say that she tends to, of course, spirit wherever it is, whatever happened to it. Where some people suggest that instead she kind of decided to take on of course burden, and that she's the one who actually guides dwarf clans, and she's the one who gives like dwarven clerics their power and stuff. That's kind of because they're pretty heretical in dwarven culture, but some people believe that's what happened. And yeah, I believe that's all the races. That's the vast majority of the lore of the world. Any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned Castor was the god of the Goliaths. Are there
Yes.
giants in this world?
Yeah, they are, but they weren't created by the gods. Much like a lot of the nasty things in the world, they're remnants from whatever darkness was that existed before the gods. So a lot of them do live on the ground. Some of them probably sleeping might be disturbed. It's possible whatever entities that the super nasty ones that gods couldn't kill that were driven deep in the ground, it's possible they're sending stuff up. So that's where like monsters and nasty things come from that weren't directly created by the gods themselves. Gods aren't the be all and end all powers in this world.
Cool.
Okay. If that's most people's questions, I've been talking for a while. So the next bit we were planning on doing with you guys, we're going to really discuss what character you might be thinking. Now you've had a chance to learn about the world, ask questions, all that jazz. Obviously, nothing you say today is set in stone by any means. Just what you're thinking, like classes, races, stuff like that.
I said going in to various people, I was very happy to fill whatever role the party needed.
We need goblins.
See, I meant in terms of class, but sure.
The concept of an all kobold and goblin squad just going around causing problems.
I mean, there's enough small races that you could do that if you wanted.
Can we get our half-orc barbarian chaperone?
Yeah. Lumia has told us that she plans on playing a half-orc barbarian. That's what she's thinking. So we've got a barbarian, so I don't know if there's other classes you guys particularly want to fill in behind that.
I mean, I knew I was probably going to go wizard. I was teetering on the fence between Yuan Ti and Ganassi, but I think after all this, I'm going to go Ganassi.
Very nice.
Hooked you into the whole dying race thing, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was cool.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the Outcast Club, I've been lingering towards Tiefling.
Okay,
Matt's been talking to me about this tiefling for a little while now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to sort
of. On to play on hard mode.
Yeah, well, you know, you say that his name
horns
was
and tail.
His name was literally Wanderlust. So when I was hearing the tabaxi being described, I was like, "Oh, cool! I've made a tabaxi in a tiefling's body."
I was thinking the exact same thing. That
Just like there's just a bit of a mix-up.
Your premonitions, the wavelengths were on. It kind of got a little bit scrambled.
I as I said there. Eventually, I'll get words out.
Otherwise known as Neum.
Zoom. Yeah. As I said, there.
Do you know what, Reddit?
No.
I'm seeing a gap.
I'm not going to get this thought out ever.
If there's
Had
a
a
monk
request for
and a
full
wizard,
kobold party.
if there's a monk and a wizard
Hmm.
and a barbarian and a fighter, do you know what's missing? I think there might be a cleric missing.
There's a cleric missing, isn't there?
Yeah, I think there might be a
You
cleric
don't have to
missing.
play cleric just because it's a religion's heavy world. Like,
Oh, but it's a treat for Riley to play a cleric.
I do like my good Healy boys.
I do like clerics. I mean, stuff like clerics and paladins, thematically are very easy to just slot in.
Yeah.
Be as creative as you like. Get them
Yeah.
juices juicing.
I'll
Get your creativity fruit and just juice it as hard as you can.
What a sentence.
tell you what, I'm going to say something I'm going to regret.
Okay.
The audience can decide what class I play. Whatever gets the most votes is the class I will play. I have the race already in mind as what I want to play, but then I'll go with that.
The classes.
Chaos mode.
Oh, yeah. Can we have all the classes listed and then also just Kobold?
Kobold is a class. So.
Spam, you
Beagle,
you know my feelings on Necromancer. Mad King Ollie, all my characters are mildly suicidal. Shush. I've summoned the chat. They're all saying don't do things.
It is a good one chat interactive.
Druid. I'd love.
We're not using.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
No.
I was about to say Artificer was an option.
Also, I already have like 3, so please no.
It's not one of the sources I'm familiar with. This is one of the reasons I have highly limited sources, because I have to do this, otherwise I can't DM, because I need to know everything. This is why when I told you I'm a control thief as a DM, this is what I meant.
I was waiting for Warforged, like just the god that turns around and goes, "Oh, that's what you meant by creatures."
I just created something.
I was just building shit.
I just put some sticks and rocks together.
Cool.
Right.
Go.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to regret this.
Are you voting, Riley?
No.
Oh, what do I want you to play?
I
No, the DM gets to decide as well.
I think something that would be interesting.
Oh, this is excellent.
What's already winning? I'm not looking at the store poll. What's winning?
Kobold.
Kobold?
60% of the vote. Oh,
So I'll just play a Furbold Kobold.
Yeah.
Catching up.
I mean, that would just be a bold bulk.
Bold bulk. Oh, it's a Furbold Kobold hybrid. That's a bold bulk.
Oh, God.
I think so. If it's that
Kobolds
bad.
are not a class, unfortunately. Unless you just want to play a CR or a quarter of an eighth Kobold the entire campaign.
Yeah, I'll just play. What is it like the
Yeah, and I thought
the
I would
Kobold
be playing on
Inventor
hard
or
mode.
something? I'm resisting the urge to do the voice of the infamous Kobold from another stream game.
That's a witch, not a kobold. I don't know what I'm thinking.
I mean, kobolds
That's
can be
Waluigi.
witches. Kobolds can be witches, and
Waluigi is a
kobolds can
kobold
be
as well.
Waluigi.
Game theory, Waluigi is just 3 kobolds in a trench coat.
Checkmate, atheist.
You got one in each head, and then the torso up is the third one.
I mean, what's it? Luigi is 3 kobolds in a pair of dungarees. That's the important distinction.
I chose the one I think it would be the most interesting to see Ryden play.
Oh god, what was that?
I quite like the rogue vote, to be honest. Rogue bold.
Kobold.
I saw a thing recently that was like the best reason to allow Guildmaster's Guide as a source, which is to play a Loxodon rogue, and just before you kill someone, say, "Someone forgot about the elephant in the room."
No, you could be the elephant in the fridge, leaving no footprints in the butter.
Well, it depends if you can fit in with Boris.
But Oris.
Boris is the ultimate VBEG on this campaign. You have to first defeat his hair, though, to be able to gain access to his chamber.
Just 5 votes.
Have each of you voted?
Have the
I
chat.
have voted.
I want a little sticker now. I voted.
Have the
I
chat.
voted to decide Riley's fate.
Come on, chat, vote.
I think most of them have, to be fair.
Let's send it to what's
Only
it?
5 votes.
Yo, there are a couple of things that are just like robots, as far as I can tell. They're here to absorb
I
statistics.
think we got 7 votes on the first one, but oh well, it's fine. Do whatever.
I was about to say, some people might just be abstaining because of the lack of kobold.
It's a protest. Protest, no vote.
Right, so got monk, sorcerer.
Hashtag kobolds are a class as well.
Hashtag kobold class matters.
If we play hard enough, WotC will eventually hear our prayers.
Ooh, it's tied between cleric and warlock.
Oh, you get to choose then, cleric or warlock.
No, Lumi gets the break vote.
You can roll you can roll a d2 if you like.
I think Looney threw in another warlock vote.
You can roll a d2 if you really want it to be random.
One is cleric, one is warlock.
Are we happy with that's the?
I mean, it's your character.
No, are we happy with that's the amount of votes?
I think so.
Leave it to the dice.
Hey,
Warlock.
really, just roll
What?
with it.
Hey, I rolled a 2. Warlock is second in that list, so therefore I am a warlock.
I genuinely expected you to say so. Therefore, I'm a cleric.
No, I rolled a 2, therefore I am a paladin.
Oh yeah.
Bamboozled.
That's right. You could be a celestial warlock if you want to be Healy.
Oh, now I've got to come up with a voice for my Nomi boy.
So you're a gnome warlock.
Yes, no warlock.
Okay, so we're thinking gnome warlock, half orc barbarian. Was it kobold son for Nat? I think that's as close as we're going to get today, which is fine. You don't need them today.
We need them Wednesday.
Okay. So,
First session on Wednesday.
yes, I believe that's a prank. I believe that's so good for everybody here, right?
Yes.
Our official time zone is BST for the
8 o'clock BST.
next couple months. Changes. Yes, 8 o'clock BST. Yes, that is when we plan to start, and we'll be regularly on a Wednesday. This is just a one-off because we couldn't do Wednesday this week, and we didn't want to wait another to get started. Okay, let's do all the boring. Well, it's not boring. Just the kind of housekeeping, I guess, with like house rules and stuff. Oh, I should have made a list with my house rules on them.
Oh, clarify. What level are we starting at?
I think we'll be starting at 1 for this one. This feels like a campaign where you'd start right at the bottom when a god sneezing will kill you, and then we'll go up as high as you can when you can when it's not suicide or it's not necessarily suicide slap a god in the face. It's just mostly suicide. It just feels like a campaign where starting the bottom up thing feels appropriate rather than jumping in at level 3 or whatever.
Sounds good.
So first house rule I use is luck. So whenever there's something that feels like, or maybe there's like someone who's I can speak. An ambush on the party and they're going to shoot someone, I might get you to roll luck to see who gets shot instead of just me deciding. So basically, when I ask you to roll luck, it's when I like, it's more fun if I don't decide, essentially. So whenever I call for you to roll luck, that just means roll a d100. And so the way I do it is 100 is necessarily good, 1 is necessarily bad. If I think, this is a 50-50 chance, I might say, well, let's go 30 to 80. And if it's in there, it happens. Or if it's outside, it doesn't, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be, if it's just 1, let's say it's the closest to 35 or whatever. So you don't know how lucky you've been by rolling the die, essentially. That's basically all that's doing. So basically when I say roll luck, I mean roll the d100. Yes. I mean, you can roll a duck if you want. I'm not entirely sure Roll20's integration for that quite yet, so you have to do it in person.
This is fine. I can acquire duck.
You have to provide your own duck, unfortunately.
I can provide ducks for people.
Good.
There's a blue rubber duck somewhere. There he is. I've just seen him.
I mean real ducks.
Bring your own duck. Yeah. Next what I want to do is I've kind of halved it. I want to make it an official house roll, so it's fully solid going into this campaign. And that is you only have hit points if you're in combat. So what that kind of means is obviously hit points is not just meat points, it's not how much physical damage you can take. It's your tenacity to keep going, it's your stamina to keep dodging and fighting and going on and all that. So it's kind of, if you're a rogue sneaking up on their guard and you pass your stealth check and you pass your attack roll to stab him in the throat, if you stab him in the throat, he is dead. It doesn't matter if he's got 42 HP and you only do like 4d6 damage to him. You stabbed him in the throat. He doesn't have the throat anymore. He is dead. That's the kind of thing. Obviously, goes both ways. It also enables me to, even at a higher level, allows me to, if a bandit NPC kind of passes his stealth roll, you fail perception, he's able to sneak up behind you and conk you on the head. He can knock you unconscious. So obviously that's a tool for me to be able to use. So with any house rule I do, it's always a two-way street. So anything you can do to NPCs can do to you, and vice versa. Another reason I use this is, barbarian, if you chuck him off a million feet in the air and he rages right before he hits the ground, technically he survives with 10 health. Like that kind of thing to me is stupid. Yes, and I don't care that there's been accounts of people falling from planes and surviving. Like, they were unconscious, they didn't have 10 HP and could just get up and carry on about their day. They're unconscious and would have died. We want the medical help, including things like defibrillators. And what's the D&D equivalent to defibrillator? Oh, that's right, revivify. So if you fall from 1 million feet, you are dead, no matter how many HP you have. And so it's basically any time it's logical. So even if you're in the middle of the fight, let's say, and there's kind of a thing happens where it's just logical that they die, they die. Like, if you put an enemy into lava, they gon' die. Like, if you get pushed into lava, unless you have fire like immunity, you gon' die. Like, it's just these kind of logical things. And it's kind of something that I've half done. I just want to make it on paper official going into this one, because I think that'll help with kind of how things go.
Just as a small point, because it's going to drive me nuts if I don't actually get pushed into lava.
Well, whatever. Yeah.
You would float on top of it.
Well, you'd still die horribly.
You would not think.
I think we agree on the point of dying horribly, unless you have fire.
It's not, regardless of whether or not you go in, it's a bad time.
Yes.
It's a bad time. Most people would actually ignite long before they even touch the lava, but you wouldn't think, because it is despite being ostensibly a liquid,
It's
rock.
more dense than you are.
Yes.
Oh, I don't. There aren't many things more dense than I am.
I am though.
Dense, not mentally.
What about the character?
Yes. Yeah. The next one I like to do, I like to give the choice to the players, and this is to healing potions. So there's one of two ways I like to let you choose between, because I think regular healing potions, you have to use an action, you get 2d4 plus 2 or whatever the level is. I don't think that's worth it. I think that's a waste of an action because it's not a whole lot, especially at higher levels. So the choice I like to give you is either it's random dice, so it's your 2d4 plus 2, it's a bonus action to drink, or it's a action to drink, but it deals max healing. So a 2d4 plus 2 would just do 10. So a regular healing potion just straight up does 10. But it takes action, so it's a qualified judgment, tactical decision in combat to say, I'm going to drink this healing potion instead of like, oh, I rolled 2 ones, I get 4 HP. I used my entire action to get 4 HP. And no, you're reliably getting like 10 healing, which is a decent chunk. So it might be worth your action to do it. So those are kind of ways I give my players the option. What you choose is up to you.
I've personally always played with bonus action health potions.
Yeah, I know that's the way most
Probably
people
logic.
play it. I just like to give people this option.
Yeah, I run bonus action, so I'm fine with that.
All right, cool. We'll go with that then.
Is that? That's what I was
Yes,
going to
it's
ask.
an action to feed it someone else, because if it's just you can pop bonus action. If it's someone else, you need to grab their face, hit it back, pop, shove. Like it's a whole process. Next one regards death and resurrection, all that. There is a finite number of diamonds in the world, depending on how many you can access. Depends on your level. The exact formula I'm still playing around with, but if you die a lot, you will then eventually run out of diamonds. So this is just to add like a punishment to death, even at higher levels where 500 gold bringing back, psh, that's pocket change. Kind of keep some sort of consequence because there's only so many diamonds. That's just a way I run it. That's just courtesy call. The second is resurrection mishap tables. So what I do is when you get resurrected, you roll a d10 on this table, and you have a permanent effect. None of them are good. Some are worse than others. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's more fun this way. But I will tell you a 1 means you cannot be resurrected again. This is just to add more consequences to dying and being resurrected. Just to give it that more weight and I'm 1 HP and probably going to die. I really need to get out of it. It's just kind of a mechanical incentive to kind of get that kind of feeding into the game, where oftentimes in combat it can be, I'll go down, but it's fine because I know my player's got revivify and stuff ready. So those are just ways I DM. If you have a particular problem with them, you can always bring it up. That's the way I do it. The resurrection mishap isn't. It's not like game-breakingly bad. You're not going to become impotent because of it.
Yeah, that's always my concern with that sort of stuff, because
No,
it's
not
very easy to get like the negative rolls going. So once you die once, it's just like you're then more likely to die again, and then again, and then again, and then again.
It's not intended to be a character crippler. It's just a minor consequence that you need to keep on mind.
That's on.
Yeah, that
And
makes
that's
to an extent.
And that's on
That's kind of the purpose of it.
just being reduced to 0 hit points.
Hmm?
Is that on full death or is that on just
Full death. So when you either insta die or fail your death saves or whatever, or you have your throat torn out, so it's not when you reduce to 0. It's full dead. So if you die and you have to be revivified or whatever, so it shouldn't come up too often. It's just an extra impact on death.
Bamalami in the chat raised a good point. If we die, do we come back at the same level as everyone else?
Yeah. So if you die and everyone else levels up, you would come back at that level. It's. I don't like to nerf anyone in particular for your character's died. Like, that's bad enough. I'm not going to make you a level less than everybody else. That's unfair.
It's the same logic. It's just the negative.
It's just
Wow.
the only negative impact is this
Yeah.
consequence table.
How do we do stats?
Okay, stats is 4d6 drop 1. I think it could be fun to roll them now.
Yeah.
I have I have the roll 20 command right here. If you give me a minute.
Cool.
It's just nice because it does them all at once, and it is it. Yeah, we've got it here anyway. I'll paste it again. Stoop. There you go. That's a command. Just put that in roll 20, and it'll roll all your stats nice and nicely. Let's do them one at a time. Do you have it ready? Oh yes. Yeah. Okay. So if you add up all your modifiers, it's +3 or less, unless you particularly want it, because it's 2 18s and 2 6s or whatever that make it less than that. You can just reroll, and you keep rerolling until you have a total modifier of +4 or more. It's just to make sure you don't end up with too crap of a character, unless you particularly want it. As I say, if you roll 3 18s or 3 6s and it maps out to +0 modifier, but you want that, like, sure, I'll let you do that. If you roll 3 18s and 3 6s, I'll let you keep it. Let's go. I should have a drum roll macro. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, then I hate this method, but let's get it over with.
Yes, that's +4 overall. So that's what you have. Matt. That's quite good. That's juicy. You got a 6 in all but one. Oh dear. Okay, righty.
Whoa. Oh, there's the 18.
Yeah, you guys are good at rolling dice, which is
guaranteed
good and bad sign.
Guaranteed good boy.
Yeah, there's a nice, like, everyone's got a -1 in there though, at least one, which is good as well. Even if you have all got at least a 16. Yeah, those are some tasty stats.
It's a
you do
minus
very well to roll them. Yeah, we have to get Lumi to do hers another time.
Oh, she just did till 10. That's her punishment for not being here.
Commoners.
Maybe no.
Nice. We can post. We'll post them on the Twitter. Just so everyone knows it's kosher, and so you can have a look. But yes, did I have any more house rules?
Critical hits. How do you do critical hits?
Oh, it's just like twice as many dice.
Okay.
So if you do a D8, you do roll 2D8. Just the normal. Yes.
Multi-classing feats.
Yeah. That's all kosher. I don't use any other variations like the ones from the DMG, to my knowledge.
Hit die? Do you do average or rolled or just rolled?
Oh, your choice. You choose whenever you level up. Yes, you can't say, I'll roll. Oh no, that's a 1. I'll take average. You do reroll once. You do reroll. Yes, you reroll ones. If you have a D10 or higher, you can reroll 1s and 2s. Just because, like, on a D10, on a D12, a 2 is the same as rolling a 1 and a D6. So I like to add that just to make tanky people more tanky.
Is that you always reroll a 1, or is it if you roll a 1, you reroll it once and then you take whatever you get?
No, you keep rerolling it until you get something that is the 1.
That's all right.
Awesome.
Cool. Hey, thank you all very much for joining. Thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah.
For watching us just talk about a D&D game we're not actually playing.
Hopefully see you all on Wednesday.
Yes, hopefully, if as many of you can make it Wednesday, 8 o'clock BST, we'll get started. If you didn't catch all of this stream, or you have friends who might be interested, we're hoping to edit it and get it up on YouTube tomorrow, hopefully. So there's plenty of time before Wednesday, but that is not a guarantee because I'm new at video editing and YouTube. For all I know, well, yeah, The full edited will be on Twitch. I just like to have a slightly edited version on YouTube, so it's more permanent.
Yeah.
I can't
Looks like we've
a
already got
real
one
session,
fan in the book.
a real session either. Oh, Book Wyvern. That is a great name. Book Wyvern. That is glorious. I kind of upset. Yeah, thank you very much. Bye.
Ciao.
Whoop!